Now it's 2 days later and they're even upping their estimate of where they think they're going to be at. All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I am Tom. This is not financial advice. We're here to talk about all things investing. And today I want to talk to you about a company called HUT8. So let's dig right into it. So HUT8 is a Bitcoin mining company. They are located in Canada and they recently have had a lot of big news. So I wanted to go through some of the stuff that just happened to them and then some press releases they put out in addition to an interview that I saw with their CEO recently and go through my thoughts on this, and then I'm going to tell you where I think it's going. So let's take a look. Okay, so first, just to recap, I did a video on this last month, so you can check that out in the link below. And I went through, they had some big news at that time. At that time, they were doing a couple of different things. At that time, they were doing a couple of big things. The first one was they uplisted to the NASDAQ. So they are currently traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and now they've been added to the NASDAQ under stock ticker HUT. They were previously traded as an over-the-counter stock ticker HUTMF. So that's the first piece of big news. So that can oftentimes be a big catalyst. At the same time, they also raised a lot of capital via equity. So they did a stock offering, which diluted their stock. So when we get to the chart later, you'll see it was a little bit of a bumpy road there 3 or 4 days in a row where their stock went way up on the news that they were going to list to the NASDAQ, and the stock went down on the news that they were raising capital, which was going to dilute everybody's equity. Right away, they uplisted to the NASDAQ. So they're currently trading on the NASDAQ. We'll take a look at that, but subsequent to that, so we talked at that time about, because there was such a flurry of news all at once, that it was maybe going to take the market a little while to digest this news and, not necessarily to expect a giant pop on the day that they list on the NASDAQ. So it's kind of played out that way. They've actually gotten a nice little bump, but they're still in the same trading range. So we will look at the chart later and go through that. On June 28th, management issued an update. HUT8 Mining provides corporate update following recent financing and ongoing new machine installation initiatives. Currently, they're listing on their website that they have 1,200 petahashes per second, which is 1.2 exahash. So anybody over 1 exahash hash rate, that kind of puts them amongst the elite miners in North America. There's maybe a half a dozen in that range, and that's it. So this is one of the oldest mining companies. These guys have had a philosophy of holding their Bitcoin. They were hodling before that was even a word, I think, and so they've compiled a massive amount of Bitcoin. I think next month they'll cross the 4,000 mark. So they will be holding over 4,000 Bitcoin, and they expect by the end of the year to be holding over 5,000 Bitcoin. So that is a strategy that has paid off for them big time. So we looked at the website, and they're currently at 1.2 exahash per second. So like we said, that makes them one of the big guys. Now, what are they doing in the future? So this press release basically gives some insight into that, and this is key information. One of the things that we look for in the Bitcoin mining industry is information and transparency from management. So I will tell you, I think this company has a very strong management team, and they keep their stockholders informed. This press release is a perfect example of that. The company anticipates expansion of current installed hash rate of approximately 1.2 exahash to approximately 2.5 to 3.0 exahash by the end of 2021, and approximately 6 exahash by mid-2022. So those are monstrous increases in their hash rate. This is a company that came into the year with 1 exahash, and they're saying by the middle of next year, they're going to be at 6 exahash. So that's a 6x in the amount of mining. Now, in the middle, actually, the worldwide hash rate has come way down. It may very likely inch its way back up to where it was, but it's about half of what it was at its peak from 4 or 5 months ago. Mainly, I think, due to a lot of the machines in China being either turned off or in transit on their way to maybe someplace else. So that's another factor that helps them. As they continue to increase their hash rate, the worldwide hash rate is decreasing. So they're becoming an even larger percentage of the total amount of the world's hash rate, which means they get more Bitcoin. So what this means in the short term is it looks like they're saying they're going to mine an additional 2 or 3 Bitcoin per day by the end of August, on top of the current rate of somewhere between 6 and 7 a day. So they'll be pushing 10 a day by the end of August, and they'll be nowhere near their goal. So that should more than double by the end of the year, and then it should more than double again next year, just based on the increase in the machines that they have to get up to that 6.0 exahash. So those are some massive, massive increases. Now, they did about $30 million of revenue in the first quarter. They did about $40 million of revenue in the year last year, 2020. This year, I'm anticipating, based on everything that they're saying, and again, I am not a financial analyst. This is not financial advice. This is just me going through, doing my own due diligence and looking at their financial statements and their press releases and just doing the math, really. So I would expect, my expectation is that this year they will jump from $40 million in revenue last year. I think they will at least quadruple that, so somewhere over $160 million this year. And I'm expecting, I think very reasonably, over $500 million of revenue next year. So you can see they're a company that in 2 years is, in my estimation, going to go from $40 million in revenue to over $500 million in revenue. And depending on what happens with the price of Bitcoin, it could be substantially more than that. They put out this press release. HUT8 Mining announces purchase of 12,000 new MicroBT miners for deployment by the end of Q4 2021. So what does this mean? So what they say is, given current Bitcoin network dynamics, these hash rate installations are expected to increase HUT8's average production from 6.5 to 7.5 Bitcoin per day, where they are right now, to 14 to 16 Bitcoin per day based on current economic conditions. So now it's 2 days later, and they're even upping their estimate of where they think they're going to be at. So they're looking at, maybe 15 Bitcoin a day by the end of the year this year, and they're going to double their equipment next year. Now, I will tell you, it looked to me that in watching the interview, I did notice a couple of things, and they were good. I thought it was an insightful interview, and one of the things that they talked about is the 6 exahash, because you can say you're going to do whatever you want, but actual execution is a different story. So, seeing the words on paper is exciting, but watching the CEO talk about their planning, talk about the fact that they were actually able to grab these 12,000 machines, that wasn't even a part of their plan. So machines have become more available, and based on the shift in what's happened in the world, without making any guarantees, she was extremely confident about the 6 exahash. It's clear that they have a plan in mind. In addition to that, they talked about the fact that they were considering other options versus continuing to dilute their stock, potentially getting financing terms and having some debt. They have no debt right now. They paid all their debt off. They have a massively strong balance sheet. With their Bitcoin and their cash, they have, I think, the equivalence of over $150 million on hand versus virtually no liabilities. So they're in a great position to, she said, the terms of the debt that they've been looking at recently are much better than the terms they've been offered in the past. So either way, whether through issuance of stock, but it looks like maybe they're not going to need to do that, they're going to be able to get to their goal of 6 exahash next year. I've drawn a few points on this chart. I'm just going to zoom in. This spot right here, this is the day they listed on the NASDAQ. So that's kind of my point of reference. This is the day, just a couple of days earlier, that they announced that they were approved and that they were going to uplist. So they had a nice bump that day. You can see they're down a little bit here based on the fact that they then subsequently said they were going to issue some more stock and create a little bit of stock dilution. So they bounced off of this line here, which now let me zoom out and kind of give you my big picture. So this line here is at about $3.20. They did bounce off of this. This has been pretty long-term support for the whole year. And so they bounced off of that recently. I don't see them retesting that, but certainly I guess they could retest that. And I think, my confidence is high that they'll at least hold that line. This to me looks like a new line of support. So somewhere around the $4.50 range, I think they've established some new support here. So let me talk about my personal price targets. And again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just based on my due diligence. Please do your own due diligence, but I'm going to let you know what I think. So I've drawn two yellow lines here. One is at $10, where you can see they have been before and a couple of times here back in February. And then they did spike up to $13 for one day at the peak in late February. Those are two places they've already been. I believe as you look at this company based on valuation, it's significantly undervalued. So for starters, I see them at least getting back to where they came from. And so that would be my initial price target would be $10, which is a little bit more than a double. And I see them passing their all-time high before the end of the year, which puts them over $13. So maybe pushing in the 13 to 15 range by the end of the year. Just a general warning. All of these mining stocks are very volatile assets. So, you need to have a stomach for some volatility. You'll see some big swings up and down, but for me, these are buy and hold. And so I think if you hold them over the long term, and again, this is not financial advice, but that is what I will be doing. So please, if you like this video, do us a favor and smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.